Everyone, my name is Raghavendra Agrawal. In this topic, we'll discuss on what is the different ways that consumer, the 5G network function consumer, right, communicate with the producer. Let's begin. So as we know that the 5G network function is the service-based architecture, right? In the service-based architecture, there is some network function behave as a consumer, and some of the network function behave as a producer. Producer means which is the network function which is producing the services. For example, the SMF is producing the NSMF PDU station as a service. UDM is producing the NUDM UECM as a service, or NUDM SDM as a service, right? Similarly, AMF is producing NAMF communication as a service, right? So the some network function B which is exposing the service known as producer, and the network function which is consuming the service which is being exposed by the producer is called consumer, right? Let's say that AMF is consuming the NUDM SDM as a service which is being produced by UDM, right? So AMF becomes the consumer and UDM becomes the producer. Similarly, AMF is consuming the NSMF PDU session service which is being exposed by SMF. So in this case, AMF becomes consumer and SMF become producer, right? So let's understand what is the different ways that consumer can communicate, can talk to producer. First is a model A, direct communication. Direct communication means the consumer, which let's say the example AMF as a consumer, right, want to talk to producer which is producing the service, let's say NSMF PDU session which is being produced by SMF. Now AMF want to talk to SMF, right? So it is directly send the service request to the SMF. Means in the AMF we have a static configuration, right, saying that for NSMF PDU session as a service send to this particular producer, right? So there is a static configuration inside AMF itself, and then the request will be forwarded to SMF. This is called direct communication without NRF. There is no NRF in between. Then SMF respond to that request, right? So this is called mod A communication. Model A, direct communication without NRF interaction. Let's understand model B. Model B in which there is a direct communication with NRF, right? Now let's take the example that AMF as a consumer want to talk to SMF as a producer for NSMF PDU session service, right? So first AMF will go to NRF and try to discover the SMF FQDN or SMF address, right? So what it will do, AMF will send the discovery request, an NRF discovery request to the NRF and send the information saying that this is the service, let's say NSMF PDU session as a service, right? We want to know what is the different FQDN or different SMF is available in the network, which is exposing the NSMF PDU session service for this particular IMSI. Because whenever the AMF sends the request to the NRF, it sends multiple discovery parameters, right? It sends the IMSI information, the SUPI information, the MSISD information, it sends the locality, it sends the PLMN, it sends the service it want to discover, right? So it sends multiple information, multiple discovery parameters to the NRF. Basis that NRF respond the NF profile, network function profiles, right? And once the NRF respond to the AMF with a different network function profile, AMF will send the service request to the SMF, right? So in model B, there is no static entry. AMF will talk to NRF, try to get the different network function available for that particular network service, right? Which means different producers available for that particular network service, right? And then AMF will select that producer and send the service request, and then the producer process that request and respond with a service response. So this is called model B. It is again direct communication but with NRF interaction. understand model C. Model C is indirect communication, right? Indirect communication, which means that whenever the network function consumer want to talk to network function producer, right, it will go to NRF, try to discover the different producer available for that particular service, right? So it again send the multiple discovery parameters basis that NRF fetch that what are the different producers available for that particular service, right, for that particular service request, discovery request, and send the NF profile to the AMF. Now in indirect communication, the network function consumer will talk to SCP, service communication proxy. It will not directly talk to producer. It will send the request, routing request to SCP. It will send the service request to SCP. SCP, based on available producer, right, will select the producer and send the service request to the producer, right? Now producer will process the request from the SCP, and then SCP resend the response back to the consumer. So between the consumer and the producer there is another network function called SCP, service communication proxy, right, which is routing the service request between the consumer and the producer, right? Now there is another model which is called model D, indirect communication and delegated discovery, right, which means let's say that we have consumer again as a AMF want to talk to SMF, but now the AMF will not talk to NRF directly for network function discovery. It will send the discovery request to SCP, right? So it will send the discovery parameters plus service request, both information to the SCP. Now SCP will talk to NRF, right? Consumer will not directly talk to NRF. In the model D, which is delegated discovery, means the AMF will send the discovery parameters to SCP and SCP will talk to NRF and try to understand what are different network function profiles are available for that discovery request. And basis that, once the NRF will respond back to SCP, SCP will send the service request to the producer, right? So in model D, discovery request will also be routed via SCP, right, and producer will respond, and then further SCP will respond back to the consumer, right? So this is model D communication. So there is a 4 ways of communication between consumer and producer: model A, model B, model C, and model D. Thank you so much.